to Tampa. The Kansas City Chiefs, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. It's
in every line, throw 'em up and let something shine. Going at 'em up in mine, filthy mouth, no excuse. Find a new place to hang this noose. String me up from atop these roofs. Knot it tight so I won't get loose. Truth is you can stop and stare. Run myself out and no one cares. Dug the trench out, lay down there with a shovel up out of reach somewhere. Yeah, someone pour it in. Make it a dirt dance floor again. Say your prayers and stop it out when they bring that chorus in. I bleed it out, digging deeper just to throw it away. I bleed it out, digging deeper just to throw it away. I bleed it out, digging deeper just to throw it away. Just to throw it away. Just to throw it away. I bleed it out. Go, stop the show. Choppy words and a sloppy flow. Shotgun opera lock and load. Cock it back and then watch it go. Mama help me, I've been cursed. Death is rolling in every verse. Candy paint on his brand new hearse. Can't contain him, he knows he works. This hurts, I won't lie. Doesn't matter how hard I try. Afterwards don't mean a thing, and I know that I won't be satisfied. So why try ignoring him? Make it dirt dance flow again. Say your prayers and stop it out when they bring that chorus in. I bleed it out, digging deeper just to throw it away. I bleed it out, digging deeper just to throw it away. I bleed it out, digging deeper just to throw it away. Just to throw it away. Just to throw it away. I bleed it out. I've opened up these skies. I'll make you face us. I pull myself so far. I'll make you face us. No! I bleed it out, digging deeper just to throw it away. I bleed it out, digging deeper just to throw it away. I bleed it out, digging deeper just to throw it away. Just to throw it away. Just to throw it away. I bleed it out, digging deeper just to throw it away.
And welcome to the RCB Radio Sports Show, our special Super Bowl preview show, live at 92.5 and 94.8 FM and online on our YouTube channel, RCB Sport. We have a packed show tonight for you, and over the next 2 hours, we will speak to some of the all-time greats of American football. We'll get a perspective from Tampa Bay Buccaneers and Kansas City Chiefs, and we'll also provide a neutral perspective from our experts. Our experts tonight, we're delighted representing the Kansas City Chiefs. We have two Hall of Famers, Deron Cherry and Will Shields. Our representatives from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, we have another two Hall of Famers. We have Shelton, Quarles and Mike Alstott. And to provide a neutral perspective, we have a Miami Dolphins legend in Richmond Webb, and we have a four-time Super Bowl winner and voted 11th in the all-time greatest NFL players of all time, the one and only Ronnie Lott from San Francisco 49ers. So we will start off the show tonight and we will look towards a Kansas City perspective, and we'll start with our first guest, the one and only Deron Cherry.
We're delighted to be joined by a Kansas City legend. He joined the club as a free safety for the Kansas City Chiefs in 1981. He stayed there till 1991. He's a six-time Pro Bowler, a five-time All-Pro. He's voted in the NFL 101 team, an AFC Defensive Player of the Year, as well a Hall of Famer, NFL 1980s All-Decade Team. Total tackles 927, 6 consecutive seasons over 100 tackles, 3.5 sacks a game, over 50 interceptions, and fumble recoveries 15. We can only be talking about one man, the one and only Deron Cherry. Deron, a pleasure to talk to you, and good day, sir, and thanks for joining us here on RCB Sport.
Oh, good day to you, and it's great to be on and to be talking about my favorite team, the Kansas City Chiefs.
Deron Cherry racing after him. Touchdown, Kansas City.
And Deron, this year in particular, of all years, I suppose, with everything going on in the world, how blessed are the people of America and the sports fans? Did you think that we would have a Super Bowl in 2021, or was there always has been one? Did you actually fear that there mightn't be one this year?
Yeah, I think just from the start, the beginning, nobody knew that, this season would even be played. There were so many cases going around, and it was very difficult And especially when you're talking about the number of players that are on the team and the staff and the organization as a whole, it's very, very difficult to protect everybody. But I think the NFL, with what they came out with, their structure and how they were going to do things, really tried to put each team in a situation where they could contain the virus as much as possible. And for doing that, we were able to get a season of football. And it turned out to be a great season of football, considering everything that the league had to go through. And I thought they adjusted well, especially early in the year where they did have some cases that popped up amongst some teams and they had to rearrange the schedule, but they were able to do that and do it successfully. And for us here in America, we were very, very happy to the fact that our favorite pastime, NFL football, was being played.
Yeah, and I suppose, Deron, in terms of players and schedules, I suppose I see there in the English soccer, players are playing 2-3 games a week. Was it similar in terms of the NFL? Has the schedule been never seen before, the like of it in the NFL, in terms of the amount of games that the players had to play in such a short period of time?
No, I think for the most part, most teams under the schedule, probably over the last 10 years, how it's evolved where, you have Monday night, then you have, Saturday games late in the year, but mainly it's Monday and Sunday night games. So be able to move some of those games where they were playing on maybe a Tuesday or a Wednesday, considering the fact that maybe the team had a bye week coming up the following week, that they were able to get those games in and get them in where player safety was a situation that they could lean on, from a standpoint of making sure that each team had the proper amount of time to rest and to recover. It's very difficult when you're playing a game on Sunday and then having to come back, like say the Detroit Lions over the years where they play a Thanksgiving game on Thursday. That's a tough deal, but at least on the backside of that, they're getting, 10 days of rest to recover after playing 2 games in such a short period of time. But I thought the league did a great job of spacing it out and making sure that teams had proper rest and that the player safety was an issue so that they could protect the integrity of the sport.
Yeah, and I suppose, Deron, the one thing about Super Bowls in the past, it's been very evident that the 2 best teams always seem to find their way to the big decider. And I suppose that's just been evident even this year with everything going on, that you probably look about it and you can probably say it's a fair reflection that probably the 2 best teams and 2 most consistent teams are in the Super Bowl this year. Would you agree with that statement?
Well, I would agree to a certain extent. I think, as you look at it, it was a different year for the playoffs, so, you had teams that got in. There was only 1 bye this year. Normally in the previous years, there were 2 teams, the top 2 teams received the bye. So that was an advantage for both of those teams to have a week off before they had to play. This year was only 1 team, the team that had the best record, that played the most consistent throughout the season, got the big prize, and that was a bye. The Chiefs were able to do that. The Packers were the ones in the NFC that were able to get a first-round bye. But unfortunately, Tampa Bay came up and beat them. And the advantage that you have is you're only playing 2 games to get to the Super Bowl, whereas Tampa Bay had to play three football games in order to get to the Super Bowl. So, 1 more game, that could be a difference in a team, especially late in the year after going through such a long season.
Yeah, I suppose, Deron, you mentioned the paths for both teams in the playoffs to the Super Bowl, and we'll just recap for our viewers and listeners there. I suppose Tampa Bay came through their first playoff game. They beat Washington 31-23. Then they beat a very impactful New Orleans Saints side led by Drew Brees in a real cracking game, 30-20 points. And then I suppose in a real seesaw game again, they probably just held out against the resurgent Green Bay, 31 points to 26 to make their place in the Super Bowl. While for Kansas, they had a tight sort of low-scoring encounter against Cleveland, coming past Cleveland on a scoreline of 22-17, and didn't really got in the mojo, scoring 38 points and both conceding 24, but very routine winners over Buffalo in the conference final. I suppose, Deron, when you look at both sides, paths to the Super Bowl, would you say there's a question mark that maybe Kansas hasn't been tested as much as Tampa Bay?
No, I don't think so. I think it could be the other way around. I think the Chiefs all season long were tested for a team that was the defending Super Bowl champions, and to come through, their season the way they did, especially playing a lot of close games, because you got to admit that when you're the Super Bowl defending champion, you've got a target on your back. Everybody is after you. So every week you have to be at your tip-top form in order to win. And they were able to do that for the most part all season. They lost against the Raiders early in the season, but they won every game until the end of the year when the Chargers beat them. But, of course, they were playing all their backups and resting all their frontline people. So when you consider the fact that they came through the season the way they did, and the fact that they won a lot of close games during the season, I think they're probably more prepared than anybody. Tampa Bay, on the other hand, they had a tough year. And I think for their, to look at them and say, hey, that was a good football team from the beginning of the year. Everybody was expecting them to be very good with the amount of personnel, the quality of personnel that they have on that football team. The thing that I think people were looking at early on was, could Tom Brady adjust to the new offensive system that Bruce Arians is running? And how fast could he do that? They had some bumps along the road during the middle part of the season. I know they played the Chiefs early in the season on their schedule, and the Chiefs beat them down there. But I think as their season went on, they started to get better. They started to work together. They started to understand each other. And that's probably the one thing that I think that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers could be confident going into this Super Bowl game, is the fact that, they've come together at the end of the year, probably at the best time for them as a football team.
Yeah, and I suppose, Deron, in terms of Kansas, we can't underestimate what a massive achievement it was last year for them winning the Super Bowl after such a long wait in terms of such a franchise's history. Do you think that maybe takes the pressure off this time around in terms for Mahomes and Andy Reid, that they got over the line last year, the nerves and that experience of winning a Super Bowl? That's going to stand to probably a young quarterback like Pat Mahomes, because there's going to be no nervous tension now for Mahomes, because he experienced that last year and he came through it.
Yeah, I think it's a benefit for the Chiefs and their football team, because, they're just a year removed from the Super Bowl. So they're accustomed. They know what it was like to play in that game against a tough opponent like the 49ers, who had a tough defense as well, and put a lot of pressure on Mahomes and made him feel a little bit uncomfortable until late in that football game when he brought his team back. So I think that experience will bode well for Patrick Mahomes and this team on both sides, because they've got an experienced coaching staff that's been there before. I like what Coach Spagnuolo on the defensive side, their coordinator, has had a tremendous amount of success against Tom Brady over the years, as far as how to attack him and to make him feel a little bit uncomfortable as well. So from the Chiefs standpoint, I think they have to feel very confident that, they've been to this game. They understand it. They have a lot of players who have Super Bowl experience. Tampa Bay, they haven't been there in a long time. The only guys that I think that they have experience would be Tom Brady and Gronkowski, that have been to a Super Bowl and understand. So I'm sure they're going to rely on those two players to really put those players, the rest of their teammates, in a frame of mind that what this game means and what it's all about, and how you prepare for it and how you get ready to play a team that's the defending champions.
Yeah, and Deron, you mentioned their weapons for the Buccaneers, and just looking at that in terms of a sort of wild X card and an X factor. We know he's injury problems and it looks like he won't make it. But would Antonio Brown have been the spark in terms of this Super Bowl if he was available?
Oh, absolutely. I think anytime you have a receiver like that brings that kind of speed and ability to make plays, and it seemed like Tom Brady was getting accustomed to him, and really those two guys were working together really strongly, and having a lot of success. And I think towards the end of the year, you're seeing Gronkowski come to the forefront too. That Tom's starting to look for him a little bit more. But they do have weapons, and that's the one thing. I mean, even though Antonio Brown may not be playing, we don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure he's going to do everything that he can to try to get on that field. You got to understand, they got Chris Godwin, they got Evans, right? So they've got players. They can run the ball. They've got good running backs. So they do have weapons offensively to create problems for KC's defense. And so with Tom, he's got that experience in the big game. And, when you have a quarterback that has that experience, it's always a plus. And, so whoever has the advantage, you got two quarterbacks that have been there, experienced it. It's going to boil down to me, the game is always won. These games are always won with the big guys up front. Whoever can control the line of scrimmage is usually the team that wins in these big games. If they can protect Tom Brady and allow him the opportunity to find his receivers down the field, then he's going to advantage. If the Chiefs offensive line can protect Patrick Mahomes and allow him the opportunity to do what he does, it's going to be a heck of a game if both of the offensive lines can protect their quarterbacks, and that leaves it up to both defensive linemen and the defenses to disrupt and make those quarterbacks as uncomfortable as possible. But I say, usually these games are won in the trenches, and I don't see this game being any different.
Yeah, and Deron, in terms of the Super Bowl itself, we do know for the first time in the history we're going to have a home Super Bowl for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But I suppose, given the COVID situation, there's going to be probably limited fans in attendance. If we were talking about a different year, a different situation with full pack sort of stadiums, how much of an advantage would have that been to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers? Would it have been like an extra man on the field? And
Absolutely.
Yeah. And
absolutely.
Given the current situation about the limited fan base, does that help Kansas' cause?
Well, I think I'm sure that Tampa Bay will have a presence there. It will seem like a home game for them because they're going to be in their same locker room, I would imagine. And, they're practicing in their own facility, which is a plus during the week. So it's just like a regular home game for them. The Chiefs are treating it like a home game. They won't go in until, I think, Saturday before the game. And so they're going to be practicing here in Kansas City, this week and then next week for sure. So, but the advantage, you would say if it was a full house rather than a third of the fans, then I would probably say that Tampa is probably going to have an advantage because, they haven't been there in so many years. Everybody down there is probably excited, and they were probably going to be, their fan base was probably going to be buying up all the tickets, I would assume. But Kansas City travels well, and that's the one thing. I think people like the Chiefs. I think they love Patrick Mahomes, and I think they love Travis Kelce and Tyrann Mathieu and those guys like that. So, Chiefs Nation is big and it's strong. When it travels well. And the fact that it's going to be a limited amount of seats, I'm sure there's still going to be some excitement in the stands, and I think those players will feel that. But I would also say that I wouldn't know which team would have the advantage other than Tampa Bay because, they're playing in their home stadium and that's where they played all year long. So, from just a standpoint that they don't have to travel, you could say that they may have a slight little advantage over the Chiefs from that standpoint.
Yeah, and you mentioned there Andy Reid, the head coach of Kansas. I just want to bring up the other sort of head coach as well, Bruce Arians for Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And this is a new sort of experience, a veteran sort of coach, and Bruce Arians. That's not going to bother him sort of one bit iota, playing in a Super Bowl. But you've two type of old timers, two old wise heads in a sort of Super Bowl. Do you think there might be some sort of hidden surprise or a hidden sort of thing up, something hidden up their sleeve, an ace card that they're going to pull that we haven't seen before today?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Bruce Arians, you know, who I know, Bruce was our running backs coach when John Malkovich came in to coach us after they had let Marv Levy go. So I've known Bruce for a number of years. They've got Todd McNair on their staff. They've got Todd Bowles, Kevin Ross, who was my secondary mate here in Kansas City, is their secondary coach. So, you know, he's really just a coach that I love, you know, as a person, because I had experience with him. But I know one thing about Bruce Arians. He is aggressive, and he will bring anything that he needs to do in this game, and he will try it. I mean, he's not going to sit back and not do something different that this team hasn't seen all year long. So I would imagine that he's got some play, some gadget play that they'll use in order to try to get a big play in this game. And Andy Reid is the same way. He'll do the same thing. I mean, if you remember last year's Super Bowl, I mean, he came out with a play back in I forget, 1948 Rose Bowl or something like that, where they had the wing tee and the guys did the little dance move and turned around and they scored or got the first down on the goal line. So yeah, they like to come up with some plays and some gadgets that, you know, you haven't seen before. And I would expect both coaches, you know, you got to understand, you know, both of these coaches are getting 2 weeks to prepare for this game. Normally during the course of a season, they have 1 week to prepare. So a lot of their stuff is really just trying to go over and find the best plays they can. But with 2 weeks, man, you can go back and look at a lot of film and figure out, hey, did this team do this early in the year and how successful were they with it? You know, can we utilize this play, this gadget play? What about the fake punt? What about an onside kick or whatever? There's so much more you can do when you have 2 weeks to prepare for a team. And both of these coaches are very, very good at it. So I would expect that you will see some surprises in this game.
Guards. Never have been around a guard that could do so many things so well. Prepared like he prepared to play. I don't think there's any better. Shields.
When you talk about the production, when you talk about the consecutive games played, when you talk about 12 consecutive Pro Bowls,
he had it all. You couldn't design a guard better suited for today's game of football than Will Shields.
For a Kansas City perspective, getting to the Super Bowl last year, getting over the line, getting that Super Bowl to his name. Do you think it's going to steady him this year, that pressure is off his shoulders after delivering last year?
Well, I think once they got through and they ended up playing in the championship game in both years, and now this year going to the Super Bowl, that it's starting to build up a whole new kind of pressure of trying to compete and trying to be a part of what they call legends, you know, trying to make that legendary status of, you know, doing all these things for the first time, being able to try to win back-to-back Super Bowls, things of that nature. So I think some of the pressure is off, but I think there's been more pressure added on because he's being compared to the guy he's going to play against. And I think that's a tough comparison for you to start at a young career, but you know, he's got a great start, and I think he's handled it pretty well so far. So it's exciting to see what happens when he gets a chance to play for this second Super Bowl.
Yeah, and I suppose, Will, if we look at the two teams' paths to the final now, if we take Tampa Bay, obviously had the extra game in terms of Kansas obviously topped their conference and got the bye, but Tampa came through, first of all, against Washington, 31-23. Then they beat a New Orleans team led by Drew Brees, 30-20 points. And then, obviously, a titanic struggle against the Green Bay Packers coming through 31-26. So in terms of Kansas' route to the final, then they beat Cleveland Browns 22-17, and obviously turned it on there in the conference finals against Buffalo, winning 38-24. So when you look at probably both sides' route to the final, Tampa probably had an extra game and were probably, was it fair to say, were tested a lot more, especially against New Orleans and Green Bay. So do you think that's going to have any bearing on the big day?
Well, I think they all do, but I think because of the simple fact that, you know, Kansas City has majority of their guys that played the year before going through that process. So they know what it's like to be there and try to fight your way through it. And I think that makes a little bit of a difference too, because, you know, both guys have been there, but, you know, you have a team of guys that's been there 2 years in a row. So, you know, you try to look at and balance it out and see which one can actually handle the pressure as it starts to build as the game goes on. And really the key pieces to the game is not the top tier guys. You're going to, of course, you want them to play well, but how does that third or fourth guy that's in the slot position or different things of that nature, how do they play and create the matchups that needs to happen to win the game, whether it's offense or defense? And then, of course, health also plays a big difference in that too.
Yeah, and I suppose, Will, in terms of the Super Bowl as well, we have two of the all-time coaches involved, Andy Reid and for Kansas, for the Tampa Bay, Bruce Arians. And I suppose two widely respected coaches, two sort of veterans in their craft as well. And do you think any of them are going to have any tricks in store for the big day?
Well, I think, you know, when you're going to do it, you try to pull out all the stops. You try to figure out any little advantage that you can get. And so I know that, you know, both coaches have those sort of bits and pieces of what they try to put in. I know Coach Reid has always had some trick play or something that he tries to put in, some new motion. And Arian always has those deep balls that he likes to get off. So I think they'll both have the little things here and there. When they see that opportunity, they're definitely going to take it.
Yeah, and I suppose in terms of the looking at both teams in a bit more detail, Will, in terms of that conference final victory for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, it was really their defense that really stood up when it was needed. Obviously, Tom got picked off 3 times, but and you look at the big performances, they came from Devin White, they came from Jason Pierre-Paul, who are immense in terms of closing down that much vaunted Green Bay Packers attack. And do you think they'll have to sort of match that and even go past that to stop another formidable attacking unit in the terms of Kansas City Chiefs with Tyreek Hill, with Pat Mahomes, with Nicole Hardiman, and probably the returning Sammy Watkins?
Well, I think, of course, you know, the defense has been playing really well the last couple of weeks and actually played I thought, one of their most solid games in the championship game, where they locked down some of the guys that were premier wide receivers, and then their basic defensive front seven sort of dominated the game. And they started from the beginning and finished off really strong. And that was really what was really glaring of what they were doing. They actually had everything down of what they wanted to do and accomplish it. And I think those front seven is going to make a big difference in the game.
Yeah, and I suppose in terms of the Kansas City Chiefs, obviously to get over that hurdle last year, such a long wait for that prestigious Super Bowl. They come back with that experience this year as well, in terms of like Travis Kelce, Pat Mahomes, Tyreek Hill. They all delivered for Kansas in the big occasion last year. And I suppose in Travis Kelce in particular, we probably have one of the marquee players in terms of the NFL. And people look at Tom Brady, they look at Pat Mahomes. But can you tell us a bit about Kelce's domination in terms of big games? He always has been a big game performer.
You know, I think when you get a guy that's going to get those matchups that you need, and I think that's one of the really keys to the game, is the simple fact that you know you can't play one-on-one with Hill out on the outside, so you're going to have to double somewhere and you're going to have to single up, and that's going to be the key to the game is can you find the guy that's going to be open? And right now Kelce is that guy. He's able to make things happen, and him and Mahomes are on the same page, and when they're on the same page, it's tough to stop.
Yeah, and you mentioned being on the same page, and for a long time this season, 2 new recruits in Tampa Bay were on the same page, the likes of Tom Brady and Antonio Brown. And we know Antonio Brown has had his injury problems. He's a 50-50. He's a doubt for the Super Bowl. But he's the type of X-Factor type player. And if he's available, will he obviously make a big impression in this final?
Well, I think so, because the simple fact of his speed and his tenure of what he can do as a wide receiver, and that actually gives somebody on the other side from Evans as well. They're packed with wide receivers, and so you sort of have to try to pick your poison of which one that you're going to try to make have that one-on-one matchup, and you got to have your safeties and corners matched up with certain people, and you're hoping that they are able to win. To be able to win the game. And so it's going to be really a chess match out there trying to figure out, which guy is going to be open and which guy has the one-on-ones. And so it's going to be fun to watch too. And that's what's really cool about it, seeing what they can accomplish on either side of the ball.
And as for a Kansas City perspective, the former Chris Goodwin, probably the focus people talking about Antonio Brown, but Chris Goodwin has been very consistent in terms of this playoff. And is there a Brady's be looking to go to him more of late as well and trusting a sort of a Goodwin? So obviously he's a guy that obviously if the focus is on Antonio Brown and Antonio Brown does come back, that Goodwin could be used for one or two sort of decisive plays.
I think so, and that's the one thing about it. It's not the top tier guys that you worry about. You want them to make their plays, but it's always that guy that might be coming back off injury. Can Watson make a play? Can Brown make a play when the ball is thrown to him? When they have those one-on-one matchups, and then on the other side, can your defense match up by what they're trying to do? When you blitz, can you keep your level fast enough and hard enough to make those plays to get them off the field so that your offense can come on the field? And so it's going to be an interesting game of seeing if they can get pressure up the middle on Brady and if they can keep Mahomes in the middle on Kansas City. So they're both sort of trying to compromise and figure out how that's going to work.
Yeah, and I suppose, Will, we saw in the conference final, we saw a rare thing, the legend Tom Brady getting picked off 3 times. And obviously Green Bay, all 3 occasions didn't punish Tampa Bay for those 3 interceptions. Do you think with Mahomes running the ship in terms of Kansas, if something similar, obviously with Tom Brady, it doesn't happen twice in a row. Obviously that blip was probably won't happen in the Super Bowl. But if something similar, do you think Kansas in a situation, they're very much equipped to get points off a Brady pick?
Well, regardless of what happens, both quarterbacks, if you don't get those 7s instead of 3s or 0s, it makes a big difference. If you leave the game close enough on either side, it's going to come down to that last drive. So, you want to have that 14 to 21 point lead somewhere at the end of the game to sort of say it's put away. Without that, either one of those quarterbacks can make it happen in the final minutes to come back and, and actually punish you for it.
Yeah, and I suppose, Will, we're seeing the first time in history now where a team contesting the Super Bowl final will be able to play in their home sort of patch, their home sort of ground. And for Tampa Bay Buccaneers as well, how much of a big sort of motivation factor, and in terms of that extra man getting to play in your home stadium, they'll obviously know every patch of that ground. Brady will know it off the back of his hand as well after playing there all year, being in the same sort of dressing room, same sort of routine, same sort of build up. Is it very much a big advantage, or are we underestimating the advantage obviously with the limited crowds?
Well, I think the limited crowd's going to play a little role in that because, you have tickets that are available for both sides. So you're trying to figure out who's going to be the more dominant in the crowd itself. And I think that makes a little bit of a difference, but you still have the crowd noise that you'll be dealing with, but it's not the same as if you were hosting the Super Bowl and you can fill the stadium up. To me, that would have been such a bigger feeling for them, a bigger emotional boost than to know that they would be at home with all of their fans. And it would make a big difference. And I think, that plays a role in it. But also the cool thing about it is that they get to sleep in their own beds. They don't have to travel. They get the comforts of, of knowing what they're going to do the day to day because they are at home. And that does make a big difference.
Yeah, and I suppose, Will, in terms of quarterbacks, we've all 2, as we said, legends and such. But in terms of Pat Mahomes for his sort of future legacy, are we talking legacy here? To put 2 Super Bowls back to back, will that really to make him stand out as really the most dominant of the current sort of generation of this decade to come in terms of quarterbacks in the NFL if he manages to achieve that feat?
Well, if he can win 2 and he can win 2 back to back, I mean, it's the start. Everybody says, hey, is that the legendary thing of what you're doing and everything else? It would definitely get the beginning. And then you want to see what's going to happen after that, how exciting it'll be to keep pushing forward. But yeah, it'll cement him as being someone that's done something for the first time. And then from that point on, we'll look at, okay, what is he going to do from that point forward as far as building up his legacy? He's already built as being one of the best athletes and one of the best players at the position. Now he'll have to elevate that from each year and each year out. You know, they have to sort of prove to you what's going to happen lately. When are you going to be the next guy? That kind of thing. So you always want to push yourself and be the best you can be. And right now you have Tom Brady, which is the most dominant quarterback that's been there for 20 years. And so you still can't take anything away from him as you try to build up where Patrick Mahomes is right now doing what he needs to do to sort of set up his legacy for the future.
Yeah, and I suppose, Will, the second last start of question now before I let you go. If you were to identify one player in each team, probably that much attention and probably not focus has been on that could really deliver a big game in the Super Bowl. We just look back at New England Patriots winning. Julius Edelman stole the show in the previous year. Is there any, if you to pick out a player from both sides as a player that really could turn on the lights and really have stamp their name all over the Super Bowl, who would it be for you?
Well, if you go offensively on one side, you would say, you know, with the Buccaneers, it was the young kid that caught the touchdown in the corner right before halftime. He could cement himself as being special in this game because that could be that third or fourth guy that shows up that makes things happen. If you go on the Chiefs side, you know, is Watkins healthy enough to be that person that could help out, either him or Hartman? If you go to the defensive side, Chris Jones is one of those guys that could be, but I think Sorensen would be the guy on that side. And then if you go defense on the Buccaneers side, either or the safeties. If they come back and they're healthy and they do well, their safeties are unbelievable what they do in that defense, and they could be the difference maker in the game.
I suppose, Will, lastly, before I let you go, I suppose it's very evident in terms of your prediction what you think the outcome is going to be. But if I just say, do you think going into the fourth quarter, once we hit that 2-minute mark, that the final 2-minute mark, that the game is still going to be there for both sides in terms of winning the Super Bowl on the date in question, Sunday, February the 7th? And obviously, if that turns about as well, do you think it'll be a high-scoring game?
Well, I hope it's a close game regardless of what it is, you know, because then you're always in it. And if it's a blowout, of course, I hope it's the one way I want it to be. So I'm sort of selfish that way. But, you know, I think it'll be a really good game. And I think in the fourth quarter, you get down to those last 2 minutes. If it's not a 14 or 21-point game, I think either team has the opportunity to win it.
You back to this third part of our Super Bowl special show now as we turn our attention to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and we're delighted to have an absolute legend of the franchise joining us this evening to give his perceptions and provide the Tampa Bay Buccaneers perspective on the upcoming Super Bowl against the Kansas City Chiefs, the one and only Mike Alstott. Mike, an absolute legend of Tampa Bay Buccaneers, definitely a Hall of Fame sort of a member of that organization. How excited are you and everyone involved in Tampa Bay Buccaneers for the upcoming weekend?
Oh, what a great time it is to be, you know, a Buck, obviously with hosting the Super Bowl and then playing the Super Bowl. I mean, how that is, it's a hard task to achieve, but you know, we're in the Super Bowl. We're representing Buck Nation in our home city and home stadium, so it's pretty cool.
Stott pulls his way across the down the sideline, inside the 20 to the 10, and down at the 2. He's in, touchdown! Oh man!
First playoff home game in I don't know how many years. All right, and we're all young Bucks playing, doing our thing, and the Lions coming to town.
Alstott, the long set back. Here's the snap, and he'll get the draw play. Alstott to the 25, to the 20, to the 15, 10, 5, touchdown, Tampa Bay. Alstott up the gut, and he goes to the end zone. What a run by the A-Train.
And Mike, I suppose every team goes out at the start of the year with aspirations of reaching the Super Bowl and conference finals, and some probably with more realistic ambitions than others. And how was your reaction last year when you heard Tom Brady was going to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers? Did you immediately felt that it was a turning of the cornerstone in terms of the franchise? Because obviously it has blossomed this year for Tampa Bay Buccaneers in Brady's sort of first year to get to the Super Bowl. Did anyone see it on the horizon?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think even over the past 2 or 3 years, we've seen a team grow and grow. And with the nucleus of guys that the Buccaneers have had over the last year, 2 years, they had the talent. They just had some missing pieces. And then obviously you bring in Tom Brady, the best quarterback ever to play in the NFL. That's what he does. He gets his team to the, over the last 10 plus years, he's gotten his team to the AFC Championship or the Super Bowl, over and over and over every year. He's a perfectionist. He's a leader. He's obviously very, very talented, but I think he's put himself in great situations where he can propel his team to get to at the highest level of the game. And that's why he's been so successful. But again, it's exciting. They got a great opponent they're gonna be playing, Kansas City Chiefs. They're dangerous. They have great speed, great talent also. So again, you have two great teams. It's gonna be an exciting game.
I suppose that, Mike, in terms of Tampa Bay Buccaneers reaching the Super Bowl, they certainly had to do it the hard way in terms of the playoff. Two, I suppose, rip-roaring games against New Orleans Saints with Drew Brees, and obviously then the #1 seed in terms of the conference, the Green Bay Packers as well. So to go through that sort of route that Tampa had to go through, having the extra game in sort of the playoffs, they're really battle-hardened coming into this Super Bowl as well. And do you think maybe the two close contests will stand to them, or do you think it's going to take something out of the legs?
No, I think the Buccaneers have been growing and growing and getting better each and every week, especially the latter half of the season. It's it was a difficult season. There's no off season, there's no training in the off season to fine tune your chemistry, your dynamics, your offense. Tom's coming from a new offense. Gronk's coming from a different team, or being out for a year. You have other guys that have been acquired. But again, everybody's in the same boat. But you saw over time the chemistry, the molding of our offense, and even in the past 3 or 4 weeks, I really believe in the last 2 games, our defense has really come on top when it came from the defensive standpoint of getting turnovers for the offense and allowing them to do some good things. And our defense has been, between Rodgers and Brees, holding those guys to what they did in those 2 games. I think, they're getting a lot of confidence. Tom and his offense is getting a lot of confidence, and it's they're in a good situation right now.
And I suppose in terms of the Kansas City Chiefs, we all know the hurdle that they achieved last year, going so long without a Super Bowl, and they have that experience. And Andy Reid finally has that blossoning under his sort of CV as well. And Patrick Mahomes has that experience of getting to a Super Bowl and sort of winning it as sort of such. So in one sense, the pressure might be off Kansas City Chiefs as well. So and difficult opposition for Tampa Bay Buccaneers and Bruce Arians, given that the weight of expectation is probably gone off Kansas City's shoulders in terms of last year, in terms of what they achieved.
Yeah, I mean, fantastic team. Andy Reid's a fantastic coach. You have Patrick Mahomes, and you have all those dangerous weapons in Kansas City. They took care of what they needed to take care of last year and overcame a lot of obstacles and, overcame that long drought. This year's a new year though, right? This year's a new year, and Tom Brady, Gronk, and some other guys on the team, they've been in this situation before, and I think they'll lead their team Just like Kansas City has some guys that have never been in this situation before, but they'll lead their team. They'll let them know what to expect, what not to expect. But it's just when it's all said and done, the game's played between the lines, and it's the same dimensions as any other field, right? And I think maybe so we have a little advantage. We're used to the field. We're used to the settings. The guys can stay in their own home. There's nothing abnormal about a regular week right now for Tampa. I think that's the advantage they have. But again, this is the biggest, game on turf right now, and they're in the Super Bowl, and nobody's gonna have any excuses. They're gonna play to their best ability, and it's gonna be an exciting game.
And Mike, you mentioned it's going to be an exciting game as such. And one of the big mysteries for everyone, every neutral, and I suppose for every Tampa Bay Buccaneers fan looking on is will he or won't he, Antonio Brown, will he be available for this Super Bowl this coming weekend? There's thoughts that he might make it. And if Antonio Brown has some role to play in the Super Bowl, even if it ain't a starting sort of role, I suppose his chemistry with Brady throughout the season, they have been in sort of fine tune with each other. So Antonio Brown is a difference maker, I suppose, in terms of the Super Bowl if he's available.
No question. The talent that AB has, the speed, everything that he possesses as a wide receiver, he'll be a difference maker. But again, I think the philosophy in with the Bucs is like next man up. You saw Johnson, you saw Miller, you saw other young wide receivers making plays all year, right? And you've seen probably Tom throw to, 5, 6, 7 different wide receivers throughout a game and spreading the ball around. That's Tom does that very well. He utilizes it. He reads the defense, and whoever's open, he throws the ball to. We have our two backs that are going to run downhill and do a great job, and they've been doing a great job all year. So, I think it's going to be a game of third down possession and turnovers. That's my belief.
And Mike, you mentioned that in terms of turnovers, and I suppose when you look at the conference sort of final as such, even though Tom Brady had a game where offense, he produced moments of magic, he still got picked 3 times in that sort of conference final, but on each occasion Green Bay weren't able to capitalize, which is a rare thing. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense sort of stood strong. So the likelihood of that ever happening again, of Brady getting picked 3 times in the one game, it's very unlikely as sort of such that will happen in a Super Bowl. But in terms of Kansas City, they do have dangerous weapons, and if you do turn over the ball to Patrick Mahomes, very much likely is you're not going to get it back all too quickly.
Yeah, you're right. No, whoever wins the turnover, I said earlier, whoever wins the turnover battle, I really believe is going to win this game. And the third down possession is, you cannot turn the ball over to Patrick Mahomes and their fast, explosive offense, and give them more opportunities than what they should. So again, yeah, you're right. It's and it goes both ways, right? It goes both ways. Kansas City can't have a turnover situation either. So it's a big situation with the defenses, and I really feel that from obviously I'm being biased because I'm a Buccaneers nation, but I've only seen the Bucs in the last 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks, the whole season. I've seen them grow, that young defense grow, and doing a lot of good things right now. So I'm sure they're bringing a lot of confidence. But both teams have a lot of confidence. They wouldn't be in this game if they didn't have a lot of confidence. So that's what we got. We can sit here and analyze and diagnose and do a lot of different things, but you capitalize on your opportunity by the other team's mistakes. That's going to be the difference.
Yeah, and I suppose you mentioned the terms of it's going to come down to players, probably not the Bradys, not the Mahomes, but other players probably still with important roles to play, but sort of less known sort of names as such that could really make the difference in terms of this Super Bowl. And we saw in the last game it was the defense of Tampa Bay Buccaneers that really stood strong. And if you could pick out maybe two players aside from your Brady's or your Mahomes that on both teams that will have a big role you think to play in this Super Bowl, who do you think it will be?
I think it's going to be, I really think of on both sides of the ball, defensive line, right? I think they both have a defensive line, and us getting pressure on Mahomes in his, and the thing with him is his experience and his ability, very talented ability to be on the run and make plays with his feet and or attacking the line of scrimmage and throwing the ball. See, that's a huge advantage for him. But I think getting pressure on both quarterbacks and keeping them in the pocket. Obviously, Tom's not a runner, but he knows his outlets, right? And he throws his checkdowns to his backs all the time. You see how many balls they get per game when it's not downfield. He's very good at that. And Patrick Mahomes with his feet. But getting that instant pressure on the quarterbacks, so they're not sitting back there all day trying to pick apart the defensive backs. Both wide receiver cores are magnificent, and then they both have a great running game. So,
and
I just feel the front seven of both of. Go ahead. The front seven of both right now have to get pressure in especially the Buccaneers. They got to contain Mahomes.
And I suppose, Mike, I'm not going to ask you, Leslie, before you go, your sort of prediction for the sort of Super Bowl, because I have a fair idea what sort of the answer will be. But just lastly, do you see a game where it's going to be very much going down to the 2-minute mark in the fourth quarter, where everything's still on the line and everything to play for? And are we in for, do you think, a high-scoring Super Bowl final, or is it going to be a tight and cagey affair?
Yeah, I mean, you have the 1 and 2 offense in the National Football League statistically. Everybody's going to say, hey, it's going to be a high-scoring contest. I believe it will be. There's a lot of speed on both sides. So it's just, again, I really believe if you can capitalize, and this is every game, and I know it's being cliche, but again, it just seems like that, Tom Brady's not going to be, like you mentioned earlier, Tom Brady can't turn the ball over 3 times, right, and expect the defense to hold and get no points as if they did in the NFC Championship game, right? And it's just it's not going to happen, and vice versa, right? On both sides of the ball. I mean, both teams are going to go down and get some type of points, and I think it's going to be a high-scoring game, and I think you're not going to see a lopsided first quarter as we saw in the first contest, where you have Tyreek Hill getting 200+ yards in the first quarter, and then they're up by 10, and then the Bucs make their comeback, and Kansas City wins by 3. But I think it's going to be a tight game. I think it's going to be a very exciting game. I think it's going to be a nail biter, and whoever has the ball with the last couple seconds, minutes on the clock is going to, and they have the opportunity to win the game, shall win the game.
Mike Alstott, on that note, an absolute pleasure joining us this evening on part 3 of our Super Bowl final sort of preview show here on RCB Radio Sport Ireland, live at 92.5 and 94.8 FM, and online at www.rcb.ie. To provide us a Tampa Bay Buccaneers perspective on the upcoming Super Bowl between the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Kansas City Chiefs, an absolute legend of the franchise of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Mike Alstott. Mike, an absolute pleasure, and take care, mate.
No, thank you. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be on here, and and talk to everybody in Ireland. And hey, have a great day, and go Bucks.
Alstott. We're now delighted to be joined by another all-time great of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and part of their actual organisation as well, looking ahead to the Super Bowl, Shelton Quarles. Shelton, busy times for you, not only as an ex-player, but obviously heavily involved in the franchise for you and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. It's been a while, but are you very much excited for this weekend?
It's been a long time coming. We won back in 2002, and we've had a lot of lean years here, so it's exciting to be back.
Yeah, and Shelton, in terms of that journey, I suppose last year Bruce Arians, he drafted a wise fox, a wise campaigner in Tom Brady, and bit by bit you started to put the pieces around him. And did you feel maybe at the start of the campaign that things were beginning to roll in terms of Tampa Bay, that it had that different sort of vibe, that different mentality around the place?
It did. It started defensively last year when our defense kind of struggled early. We had a bunch of young guys playing, and they started to mature towards the end of the season. So I felt defensively we're starting to turn around. We had a few too many turnovers last year. Unfortunately, that kind of derailed our season, didn't allow us to get to the playoffs. But I knew we were headed in the right direction under his guidance, leadership, and also with our general manager, Jason Light. So coming in this year, we've made a few key acquisitions during the offseason. And, when offensively, it all starts with the quarterback. So if you have a good quarterback behind center, making good decisions, then you have an opportunity to win every week.
And I suppose for the organisation and the fans, and I suppose for Bruce Arians himself, a legendary coach, this is the holy grail for him. This is the one that he wants to achieve. Andy Reid, it was the one thing missing from his resume last year, and people were saying, Andy Reid, can he deliver the sort of big one? He did that with Kansas City Chiefs. Their massive wait was over. Do you get the sort of real sort of hunger and that sort of vibe and that sort of real passion has been flowing through Bruce Arians since the minute she won the conference final?
Yeah, I mean, we felt like we were headed in the right direction. We lost a few too many games over the course of the season to actually host any playoff games. But as the season progressed, we figured that we're heading in the right direction. We're making the right decisions, both offensively, defensively, and special teams. So we're starting to round out and become a group. And it ultimately culminated into us being in the Super Bowl this year.
Yeah, and Shelton, you mentioned being in the Super Bowl, the path you had to take to get to the Super Bowl, away at New Orleans, away in at Green Bay, two titanic tussles, two real games that could have gone to the wire. And obviously, because you weren't seeded coming into the playoffs, you didn't have that. You had to play a sort of an extra game. Being away and getting over the likes of a Drew Brees led offense, and then after that to come up against an Aaron Rodgers led offense, two great all-time quarterbacks as well, being away to them and getting over them, that must give you great confidence, because you've been up against two all-time great quarterbacks and you've triumphed. So your defense stood still. So in terms of that defensive system, you're ready for the challenge of Mahomes at the weekend.
I think so. We played Philadelphia back in 2002, and we had lost to them probably about 5 times in a row. And I remember we played them early in that season, and we lost to them at their place. And I can remember Brooks walking off the field saying, "We'll see you in the playoffs. We'll be back." And so we ended up playing them on the road in the playoffs, and we beat them. And so the same thing with Kansas City. They got to us a little bit early in the game, and we just ran out of time and didn't come back and lost 27-24. So right now, I think our opportunity is before us. We get to play a home game in our home stadium with hopefully more fans than Kansas City fans, more home fans than Kansas City fans. So we're excited about the opportunity and look forward to the challenge.
Yeah, and
Normally, I remember the last time when you got to the Super Bowl, Shelton. I suppose you were coming sort of players. You won the Super Bowl in 2002, and just looking some of your stats: tackles 581, sacks 13, interceptions 8 as well. But you were a sort of a coming team. You didn't really have that sort of an experience. This Tampa Bay Buccaneers team, it's different. We have Gronk in it. We have Antonio Brown. We have Tom Brady. They've all been there, done that, bought the t-shirt. They know all about the Super Bowl, the big day, that experience. So to have that in your dressing room, it's vital, I suppose, once you're going up against the Kansas City Chiefs.
It definitely is. You know, they have a bunch of players on their roster that played in the Super Bowl last year, so I'm pretty sure they're excited about the opportunity and about their prospects of winning as well. But to have a leader in Tom Brady, somebody who's been to more Super Bowls than anybody in history, who's played in more Super Bowls, who's won more Super Bowls. This has been his 10th, with no other player with more than 6. It's great to have him in the locker room. Gronk's a great influence. He keeps everything light and lively, and AB just comes to work every day and does what he needs to do on the field. So I'm pretty sure a bunch of our guys are asking him what it took, what it takes, and how to get it done on Sunday.
And I suppose, Shelton, you're not going to reveal, I suppose it's a close kept secret, whether Antonio is going to feature at the weekend. We're not going to ask you that in terms of giving it away. But in terms of the acquisitions as such, in terms of Antonio, he's really a wild card for you. He gives you sort of something different. And in terms of that link up with Tom Brady, they found a niche. Both two guys fell in the groove fairly on. They seem to have a mutual understanding on the football field.
They do. And we have a bunch of guys that are playing well together. When one guy goes down, another one steps up. Scotty Miller stepped up with AB down last week. Leonard Fournette has been stepping up with Ronald Jones being out for a while and being with the injury right now. So we have guys at each position that steps up. You know, we had our starting right guard go down, and we had a guy come in that we got off the practice roster from Tennessee Titans last year. So at each position, we have somebody that can step up and play. Kevin Minter stepped up for Devin White when he was out with COVID and played really well for us. So we've got different people that can step up and play very well in our system.
Yeah, and just in relation to your defense, you mentioned Devin White there, and another guy, Jean-Pierre Paul. I suppose they were absolutely phenomenal in terms of the conference final against the Green Bay Packers. Obviously, when you were picked off 3 times, give someone like Aaron Rodgers the ball 3 times. But those guys really stood to the plate when it was needed in terms of your defense. So obviously they were able to shut down Aaron Rodgers. You'd be hoping they'll be able to put the same sort of pressure and the intensity on Patrick Mahomes.
It's going to be a little bit different with Patrick. He does a lot of things with his feet, and he's looking to throw the ball down the field. So we'll have our hands full with that because he can run with the ball and he can also throw the ball really well. So he's got a bunch of weapons on offense to do that with, as well as at the running back position. So it's going to be a tough task, but I think our guys are up for it.
Yeah, and I suppose, Shelton, I'm not going to ask you about the game plan, but in terms of one of our experts, Ronnie Lott, he came up with an interesting point. He said that he feels that maybe the Buccaneers for the first 2 quarters will run an awful lot of the ball to try and keep Mahomes off the pitch in terms of mixing it up, in terms of trying to gain yardage as such. And I suppose in these sorts of Super Bowls, you have 2 weeks to prepare. Different tactics, different plays will come into question. Has it been a real sort of 2 weeks where it's been fine-tuning everything? Is everything sort of set in terms of all that sort of preparation, that sort of tactics, or has it really been recovery and getting the mindset in terms of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers? Because you had a grueling sort of schedule.
It's been a little bit of both. You know, when we played in the Super Bowl, we got off the plane at about 2 or 3 in the morning from Philadelphia and was on the plane about 9 a.m. heading to San Diego. So it's a little bit different having 2 weeks to prepare. Our guys have done well. We had a couple guys that were banged up, and we'll see if we get them back for the game.
And I suppose, Shelton, for the organization, for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers as sort of such, dare I say, apart from this year, probably an organization has been in the wilderness for a time being. That sort of prominence being in the spotlight all over the news again, all the sort of Buck fans. Is that the real disappointment that only so little of them will be in the stadium, obviously, given the current global pandemic? But do you feel the real buzz and excitement coming to work every morning, or people around? Did you see the sort of flags? Has really Tampa gone into overdrive in terms of expectation, the real hype? Do you feel the real good, this will have a real good knock-on effect in terms of the city?
Yes, everybody's really excited. I've gotten tons of calls from ex-players that are ex-teammates, and also from people around the city. Everybody's showing up on television because of the pandemic and COVID. We're not allowed to be out in the public, so we're kind of circling the wagon, keeping everything close, making sure nobody gets infected. But it's fun. It's an exciting time, and a lot of people have been going out of their way to blow the horns and wave out the window. I remember when we got home from Green Bay, there were probably about 2,000 fans outside the airport, and they were all blowing and waving. And as I was driving down the interstate, it was cars coming by me with their cameras on in the middle of the night, 2 a.m. So it's fun. We're having fun with it, and we look forward to a big game on Sunday.
Yeah, I suppose we've mentioned an awful lot of Pat Mahomes here in terms of the Kansas City Chiefs, but it's fair to say it's not a one-man team. There's an awful lot. We have the likes of Tyreek Hill, Nicole Hardeman, Travis Kelce. I mean, these are all big game players, match players, that even if someone like Mahomes went down in the first quarter and a versatile quarterback had to come in, the likes of Kelce, the likes of Tyreek Hill, Nicole Hardeman, these guys can beat most teams on their own. So in some ways you have to pay the respect to Pat Mahomes, but you have to really pay respect to these guys as well, because these really bring the best out of Pat Mahomes as well.
They do. They have a bunch of pass catchers. They have great running backs, and like I said before, we're going to have our hands full, just trying to make sure that we don't give up any big plays in the passing game.
And in terms of having that home advantage as sort of such, and in terms of maybe Kansas having to travel, having to that normality now for the last 2 weeks, being able to, with Brady, obviously, you used to be your own field, you used to know the conditions, the grass, what it feels like, your own sort of dressing rooms, that whole sort of big game experience on your home ground. Will that sort of suit you? Will that sort of calm the nerves, given the absence, that home familiarity in terms of playing at home? Do you think or does it really raise that expectation to a new level?
I think it raises the expectation, but we just have to live in the moment and let it not get too big for us. It's been fun. It's been a good ride. It's been a great year, and being able to be at home and do the normal things you have to do, not having to travel this week has been fantastic, and then being able to have your family come to the game as well would be awesome, because my kids were very young when one wasn't even born when we played the Super Bowl. So having an opportunity to come to the game as well, it'll be refreshing.
And Shelton, I know obviously how you want the game to go, and I know how you're in terms of your expectation and prediction how the game will go. But just in terms of the contest as a spectacle as such, do you think maybe for all the global fans and all and attendance that we're going to be looking at an epic tussle at the weekend, a game that's going to be in the melting pot, going down the home stretch in the fourth quarter with 2 minutes to go? Is there going to be everything to play for? Is that the sort of sense you get in terms of this game?
I think this game will go down to the wire. It'll be one that'll be remembered for the ages, not only because of the game, but also because of the pandemic. So I'm excited for us. I'm excited for our team, and excited for our community, as well as our owners. So we look forward to a great game.
And Shelton, lastly, I suppose you're in the envious position of having a Super Bowl ring around around your finger. And how great will it feel for you coming back maybe next year to start off a new season and seeing 25 or 26 young Bucks being able to show off rings in their fingers and be able to say, look, hey, look, boss, hey, look, we got one too.
Yeah, it'll be exciting. It'll be a fight for my 3 kids to figure out who's going to get the ring next.
Shelton, Quarles, an absolute pleasure for taking time with us today. I know it's flat out busy for you, given the current situation, the biggest game in your franchise for well over nearly 20 years at this stage. We wish you and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers all the best this weekend here in Ireland in the terms of the Super Bowl. Thanks for giving your time to promote the game all over the world, not just in the USA, and obviously giving your insights for all our Irish audience and Irish fans who obviously some of them would have loved to travel to the Super Bowl this weekend, but given the current situation, they can't. Shelton, thanks for giving us your time.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak to you, Jim, and we look forward to you watching our game on our own pitch.
Cheers, Shelton, and best of luck. Take care, mate. Delighted to have a Super Bowl champion with us there tonight for a neutral perspective. Not a one-time Super Bowl champion, not a two-time Super Bowl champion, not a three-time Super Bowl champion, but a four-time Super Bowl champion for the San Francisco 49ers, a 10-time Pro Bowler, an 8-time first-team All-Pro selection, a 2-time NFL interceptions leader, a Hall of Famer, voted 11th in the best 100 players of all time to play the game, over 1,146 tackles, 63 interceptions, 16 forced fumbles, and fumble recoveries are 17. And if you haven't guessed it by now by those statistics and the clue of the San Francisco 49ers, it's the one and only, the legendary Ronnie Lott.
Lott won 8 division titles. Left his mark for 4 Super Bowl winners. Naturally, it was a wealth.
Everybody sold out this week. Everybody. Damn, it's great, isn't it? You gotta let me.
He is a legend of the game, not just a guy who played. He's what the game is all about.
Ronnie, an absolute pleasure to have you here to talk to us here in Ireland about the Super Bowl at the weekend. And as a sports fan, as a neutral, are you looking forward to this one?
Yes, I am. I think one of the great things about this week is that you find yourself realizing that there are so many amazing things that are going on. And then all of a sudden you think about the game, you think about the players, you think about how they're preparing, you think about what you went through and what I went through, and you start to look back and realize that there are reasons why we won and reasons why other teams lost. But more importantly, in a game like this, you got to understand that there are exceptional great players on both sides. The bigger question is, are they going to be able to understand how to play in the elements that they're going to have in Tampa Bay Stadium? And the elements are, it's not going to be a packed stadium. The elements are that it's going to be, the weather's going to be different. The elements are that you're going to have a way of trying to figure out how to neutralize, both offenses. So to me, what I love about a game like this, you can't wait for it. And the reason you can't wait for it is that you got 2 great quarterbacks. You have obviously some guys that can do it on the defensive side. You got some great wide receivers. You got running backs. You got everything. And so for me, special teams, you got to look at that, and you got to say that you got special teams. So you look at it and you say to yourself, okay, where do you start? And then who's going to win? Well, I'm going to tell you on the Tampa Bay side, if Tampa Bay wins this game, you got to look for them to win this game by shrinking the game. They got to look for them to shrink the game, meaning that their running back is going to have to dominate. Their running group is going to have to dominate. They're going to have to find ways to keep Mahomes off the field. It's going to be like the 49ers game last year, where it was low scoring in the first half. And I got to believe that when you think about that game last year, the 49ers walked in at halftime saying, boy, we got a shot. We're in it. We have a chance. And then all of a sudden, the guy comes out in the second half, and things change. So when you think about Brady and you think about what he's going to bring to the table and what they have to do on the offensive side, they're going to have to run the football. And then the other thing, when I think about the passing game, Mike Evans, Brown, they got some speed, they have some weapons. They will go deep. They will test this team. They have to test this team by going deep. But they'll also test this team by going deep with Gronk. And the reason they're going to test them going deep with Gronk is that I think that they're going to try to isolate 49 and isolate him in a way where they're going to try to get him one-on-one with the Gronk. So I think the Gronk will tell you that if he's one-on-one with him, he should beat him. He's probably not the best defensive player on the Kansas City Chiefs. So looking for that matchup, look for them to run the football, look for Tom Brady to throw the ball up a couple of times to try to get some big plays. But this is a game where they're going to have to be able to score more points. This is a game where they're going to have to be able to control the ball. And this is a game on the offensive side. For them, Tom Brady is going to have to be Tom Brady. And so expect for Tom Brady to go out and do his thing. On the other side, Kansas City. Wow, it's like a track meet. Guys are going to do a lot of different things. They're going to be running from sideline to sideline. They're going to be running reverses. They're going to be running the football. And they're going to do a lot of things to try to get this defense to slow down, because this is a really fast defense. And when you have a fast defense, what do? You try to do misdirections. You try to get them confused. You try to get them going in different directions. So watch for them to try to slow them down and to try to make them patient and try to make these guys start to think about where they need to go. So yes, Mahomes is going to be a big factor for a lot of reasons. He's one of the best quarterbacks ever to play the game already at a young age. He can throw the ball all over the field. What I think, though, he's going to have to play and find ways to do things with his legs. Yes, he's been a little hurt. Yes, he has had some challenges, but 2 weeks he's been off. 2 weeks they've been taking care of his body. He's going to be in great shape coming into this game. I believe that he's going to go out there and he's going to have to use his legs, because I think they're going to drop a lot of guys or they're going to bring a lot of guys, meaning they're going to drop maybe 7 to 6 guys and try to find ways to slow him down, or they're going to blitz him and they're going to come after him. So they're going to have a combination of blitzing him or dropping a lot of guys back. So that's kind of what I'm seeing and what I'm feeling for this game. Now, when I think about it, when I think about both teams on the defensive side, you got to believe that when you think about Tampa Bay, the young, fast, aggressive guys that they have a lot of speed. They love flying around. They love getting after you. They love blitzing you. They're a very aggressive team. It's going to be interesting to see how Kansas City tries to take advantage of this defense. But when I think of this defense, they're going to be sound. They're disciplined. They're not going to make a lot of mistakes. And so it's going to be interesting to see if we have those moments where somebody peeks in the backfield to look back at the quarterback and not pay attention to a running back, to not pay attention to a tight end, to not pay attention to any of the guys. So that's where I think Tampa Bay's defense, as long as they're taking care of the run, as long as they're doing their assignments, and they cannot give up any big plays. On the other side, you got to look at Kansas City's defense, and it starts with them trying to get pressure on Tom Brady. They have to find a way to get pressure on Tom Brady with 4 guys. 4 guys. If they have to bring more guys, it's going to make it tough on them, because when they have to bring an extra guy, that means they're taking one of their guys out of the secondary. And for them, they like to run zones. They like to keep the ability to not allow their guys to play a lot of man-to-man. They can play man-to-man, but they don't play a lot of man-to-man. So to me, Tom Brady needs to find a way early in the game to be able to understand who to go to and how they can win that matchup. That's going to be awesome for them if they can win matchups against the Kansas City defense. But the Kansas City defense is going to sit there and they're going to blitz Tom. They're going to do a lot of different things. Spagnuolo, the defensive coordinator, he will tell you that I've gone against Tom Brady. I've put pressure on him. I know what to do to try to get him distracted. So he's really comfortable dealing with Tom Brady. The question is, who's going to have turnovers? Of the 2 quarterbacks, I got to believe, when I think about this game, I think Tampa Bay will come up with the turnover. I also feel, and I also believe that you're going to see Kansas City come up with a turnover. I don't know if it's going to be 2 or 3 turnovers, but one of the teams will have the most turnovers, and one of the teams that do have the most turnovers most likely will have an interesting way of how they manage those turnovers, because when you manage those turnovers the right way, you want to put points on the board. On the other hand, to me, special teams in both groups are going to be phenomenal. So we won't have any, issues there. Who's going to win the game? Wow. I got to go with Mahomes. And the reason why I got to go with Mahomes, I have never seen a quarterback get behind as much as he's been behind over the years. Watching him play and playing from behind, it's almost like, well, we spot him 14. Let's go after him and let's see how we can beat him. And to me, what I mean by that is that the reason I'm going with him is that he plays from behind all the time. He will play from behind in this game. They will try to find a way to exploit the man-on-man situation. They're going to try to exploit different situations. It will be a whole different game than what Tampa saw earlier in the year. So to me, going in this game, the game plan will be different. Andy Reid's game plan will be different. Bruce Arians' game plan will be different. So you got 2 great offensive coaches, head coaches that have done, tremendous jobs moving the ball. But this is going to be a defensive game. I got to believe that the defense, who doesn't give up the big plays, who really understand how to tackle. They haven't tackled for 2 weeks. You haven't tackled for 2 weeks. So you better be able to line up and know that you got to come after these guys and you're going to have to tackle well. So that's going to be a key in this game. And then lastly, who's going to win? I'm going with Kansas City. And the reason I'm going with Kansas City, I'm going to say that Kansas City is going to probably win this game. I want to say 31-17. 31-17. I think that if Tampa gets more than 17 points, that means that they got a lot of turnovers. That means that they were able to connect on a lot of bombs. And if they were able to do that, boy, the Vegas folks are going to be happy. The Vegas folks are going to be really happy. But I believe that Mahomes and what he's done and how he's done it and what he did last year in the Super Bowl, I think he's going to be even more explosive in this game. I think this is going to be a very entertaining game. We're going to see a lot of different trick plays, and I'm going to have a lot of popcorn, and I'm going to have my margaritas with me, and I'm going to enjoy this game because for you guys and knowing what I know, I've been to Ireland, and the times I've been to Ireland, the best thing that I learned about being in Ireland is this: drink a warm Guinness. and you drink a warm Guinness and you have a great time while you're drinking that warm Guinness, because there's nothing like it in the world when you get a nice Guinness that's poured, and it's poured slowly and gently, and it's coming out, and you sit there and you go, that's how you want to be known in Ireland, drinking a great Guinness. So for all you fans out there, have a great time. It's going to be a wonderful game, and I hope your team wins.
And I suppose, Ronnie, just one or two sort of quick questions before we let you go. In terms of the playoffs, just looking at both teams coming through it, obviously Tampa played an extra sort of a game, the Buccaneers. They weren't seeded, but they came through probably a tougher side. They had real tough games. They got over Drew Brees' New Orleans Saints. Then they got over the top seed in Green Bay Buccaneers. So both games, when Tampa went in as the sort of underdog, they sort of rallied against them. While Kansas, really top seed, they've strolled fairly easily enough to this sort of playoff, to this Super Bowl. So do you think maybe those extra hard, tougher games are going to stand to Tampa Bay, or do you think it's going to take out the legs while Kansas might be that bit fresher?
That's a great thought. And the reason it's a great thought is that when you play extra games, it is very difficult to recover. People have said some of the challenges when you play that extra game, because it's a playoff game, it makes it very difficult. So to me, what you just shared is a really, really interesting thought. Having that extra game puts a lot of pressure on you. Your legs are a little tired. You not necessarily have all of what you want to have in terms of fresh legs. But you got to remember, Tampa is a young team. It's probably one of the youngest teams, other than the fact that they got the oldest guy in the league playing quarterback. But it's a really young team. It's a fast team. They get around the field really fast. They're going to be hustling. They're going to do everything in their power to win this game. But to your point, the legs could be a little shot, and it's going to be interesting how they practice this whole week and how they have basically gotten ready to play this game. Because getting ready for a Super Bowl is probably more important than anything you ever have done in your life. And the reason why, you have 2 weeks, and a lot of teams don't know how to manage those 2 weeks. So this has been a great situation for Kansas City. They've been through it last year. They're in it again. Last year, they did not play well in the first half. Last year, they had some challenges. I think that this year they come into it being even more aggressive, being able to try to do more. It will be interesting to see if Tampa, in their defense, do they get confused, or are they on point and not making any mistakes? And if they're tackling well, this is going to be a long day for Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs, because that's going to take some of the sting out of, and some of the kind of air out of the balloon, because of how they're able to slow them down.
And I suppose, Ronnie, I just want to mention two players as such on either side. I suppose for Kansas City Chiefs, probably the best player in his position, no doubt, in the entire league, Travis Kelce, an absolute machine of a man. And he's so consistent. He never has an off game in terms of his consistency. And then on the flip side, then we have the wild card. Nobody knows whether he's going to play in the Super Bowl or not. Is he going to be recovered in time in terms of his injury? Obviously, himself and Tom Brady were in the groove early on in the year. That is the one and only Antonio Brown. If he didn't feature now the last day and they got over the Green Bay Packers, if Antonio Brown is able to play maybe 2 quarters, does that make a difference to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers' chances?
Yeah, and the reason why is that when you think of speed is one of the few things in the game that gives you a chance to beat people. And the reason it gives you a chance to beat people is that the guy that you're going against, if he slips or if he falls or if he doesn't do the right thing, that speed can be explosive. We saw it, 2 weeks ago, right before the half, when they gave up a long pass They gave up that touchdown. And when Tom Brady threw that long pass, to me, it showed that I still have it. And we have the speed. The question, though, is will Antonio Brown be able to do his thing and be able to help this team? Yes. With the speed that he has, it will be explosive. And they're going to need it. And the reason they're going to need it is that the way that you would want to beat a team like this is the same way that when Jerry Rice ran the post pattern against the Denver Broncos. You got to find a way to beat them, and you're going to have to find a way to beat them doing certain things that you know that you can attack them and beat them deep. So look for them to think about how they're going to beat them deep. Look for them to think about how they're going to use Gronk to be able to take advantage of his height, his speed, and his athletic ability. I think Gronk might be the secret weapon in this game because they're going to need to get a lot of first downs, and they're going to rely on him to get a lot of first downs.
Yeah, and I suppose in terms of the two coaches, you mentioned Bruce Arians and Andy Reid. I suppose Andy Reid will probably be an awful lot more relaxed going into this sort of Super Bowl. Obviously, Kansas got the big duck off their back last year, that sort of 35-year barren streak. So it was one thing being saying that Andy Reid never got to the final dance and got over the line in terms of that. He's done that now. So in terms of he has that, for a veteran coach to have that winning feeling as well, that winning experience, he's been there, he's done that, so that's going to stand to them. But for Bruce Arians, I suppose he has that sort of feeling in him, that hunger that Andy Reid had last year. So it's hunger over experience. And what as a player, let's say, who would you like to have in your dressing room as your head coach? The coach that's hungry or the guy who's got the experience of winning it?
Well, both coaches right now, and just knowing both of them, having a chance to meet both of them over the years, they're both hungry. And they're both very excited. You want more of them. And the reason you want more of it is that the more of it that you get, especially being in this environment, the more of it you love. And so for Bruce Arians, knowing what I know, this is his first time. He's loving every moment of it, and he's got the best quarterback ever playing for him. He's gonna love every moment of it. He's gonna try to find a way to make sure that Tom has a chance to show that he not only loves it, but we're gonna do everything in our power to try to win the game. On the other hand, Andy Reid, he showed in that championship game, I'm willing to take a backup quarterback and I'm willing to let him throw the ball in the flat. And so he already knows that he's going to do everything in his power to try to win this game. They will be aggressive. They will do things that we've never seen. At the same time, the beauty of this game is it's going to be around speed. And it's going to be around speed on both sides. Both sides have excellent receivers, excellent speed, and both sides have defensive backs that are not as fast. They're like me, pretty slow. And so they're going to have situations where they're going to try to get guys man on man with guys who are not as fast. They're going to try to line up situations where they get people in situations where they're not able to cover certain areas. So that's why this is going to be a really intriguing game, because you got two great offensive-minded head coaches that are going to do everything and anything to try to win this game.
I suppose, Ronnie, lastly, you've given us your prediction in terms of who you think is going to be victorious. But if someone said to you at the start of the year or the start of the playoffs that we'd see Tampa Bay and Kansas City in the Super Bowl, would that have been your selection, or would you have been saying, well, I would have expected Kansas to be there being the reigning champs? Would you have fancied someone like Green Bay to be in the final with them? So is it a surprise to see Buccaneers in the final?
Well, it's not a surprise to see the Buccaneers because you got Tom. And when you have Tom, the guy brings so many other elements to the game, meaning there are so many things that he's going to try to get his group to do. The bigger question is Andy Reid and what Andy has done and what he's trying to accomplish. And I think that when you think about both, situations, to me, you got Tom Brady and you got Andy Reid. Yes, we have Mahomes, but it's really Andy Reid that he's going to be competing against. And who's going to outthink each other? Who's going to find a way to take their championships savviness and make it work on every play, make it work that every play counts. That, to me, is going to be a very interesting dynamic here, because I've always said this: you never know how people wake up and what they're feeling that day. And if they're feeling it, they can literally, and I know this, Tom Brady has shown the ball can never touch the ground. He can have games where the ball will never touch the ground. So it's going to be a phenomenal game. I got to expect the best from Brady. You got to expect the best from Mahomes. You got to expect the unknown factor of somebody coming up with a turnover. But clearly, to me, when I think about a game like this, there's so many thoughts and so many ideas of what possibly can happen. And I'm looking forward to the game, because I think that this is one of those, rare games where you see two of the best, the youngest quarterback to ever win a Super Bowl going against the guy that is the oldest guy to ever be in a Super Bowl. It's going to be phenomenal.
And I suppose, Ronnie, I promise you this is the last question now, but just something came to my mind there when you were speaking about Tom Brady. And I suppose we all know what Tom Brady did with the Patriots with Bill Belichick. But if Brady is successful this week, coming to the Buccaneers and a restart, given his age, will this be a bigger accomplishment than anything he achieved with the New England Patriots in terms of his legacy?
Without a doubt. Without a doubt. You got to remember, he started the season, and when he started the season, they weren't practicing together. And so he didn't get a chance to have a preseason. He didn't get a chance to have games. And so he's basically has been learning everyone every day. And he has taken each one of the guys on his team and found a way to get to know them better. How lucky are all of those guys to be able to say, we did it together. We did it together. And we did it with the GOAT. We did it with one of the best players that's ever played the game. And to me, that says a lot, because bringing people together that are like-minded, that you might not ever know, it says that America, and it says that maybe, just maybe, we can get our act together here, because it is about getting people together. It is about having a commonality. And I think that that's what's so special about what Tom Brady has exhibited and what he has shown all of us, that I can lead you and I can help you, and I'm going to find a way to make you better, and just, hop on my back, and I can take you all the way to the Super Bowl.
On that note, Ronnie Lott, you mentioned the legend of Tom Brady. It's very note to mention the legend of Ronnie Lott as well. As we said, voted 11th in the best of all time, and the best 100 players to play the game. Ronnie, a pleasure talking to you today to give us a neutral perspective on the Super Bowl. Obviously, being a 49er sort of ex-player, there might be a bit of siding, you would think, given what happened last year, but thanks for providing a neutral perspective for us on the Super Bowl. We wish you well, Ronnie, and hope you enjoy the Super Bowl, and hopefully you can find a pint of Guinness from somewhere to wash it down afterwards. Ronnie, cheers.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Cheers. Thank you.
Ronnie Lott. And then now we're delighted to be joined by another real, true all-time great, another real franchise player. This guy he played for the Miami Dolphins between 1990 to 2000. He was a 7-time Pro Bowler, a 7-time consecutive Pro Bowler, a 2-time first-team All-Pro, a 2-time second-team All-Pro. He was in the NFL 1990s All-Decade team and over 118 consecutive starts. He played for the Miami Dolphins, and if you guessed it, but judging by the Dolphins, and if you're a Miami Dolphin fan here in Ireland, you know that one person will be the one and only Richmond Webb. Richmond, an honour to speak to you today. And are you excited now? Roughly 3 days out from the Super Bowl. Is the nerves jingling? Are you looking forward with anticipation, or is it the near neighbours Tampa are in the Super Bowl? Is that a bitter blow?
Yeah, I'm actually looking forward to it. I commend the NFL, with the way they handled the COVID protocol and was able to get all the games in, played, and get to this point to the actual Super Bowl. And, some of the things they implemented to, try to keep guys from, contacting COVID. And if they did, they had a protocol that they put them in. So this is the last game. It's a good thing. It's a bad thing because now we go a little bit without having football. But I'm definitely looking forward to the Super Bowl on Sunday.
And I suppose
than any player in modern Dolphin history, illustrating his durability and dependability. 7 Pro Bowl selections, 4 All-NFL selections. Always ranked among the league leaders in sacks allowed during his 11 years with the Dolphins, including 2 seasons where he only gave up 20 sacks. He was 0 P's.
Richmond, looking at both teams' paths to the Super Bowl, I suppose Tampa Bay Buccaneers had to play an extra game. There were probably people will look at it and judge him by the results and the closeness of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, especially New Orleans Saints and Green Bay Packers, where they really had to fight. Were in a real battle to make the Super Bowl. And Tampa, the path was struggled. Kansas then on the other side topped their division. They got a bye and it sort of routinely enough have found themselves back into another Super Bowl. So judging that as a player, as an ex-player, would you prefer to have gone through the easier route to the Super Bowl, or would you like to have that extra game and that tougher experience to get through it? Do you think it stands you better if you were in either camp?
Yeah, well, I think the way you look at it before the season starts is you want to try to have the best record possible to have home field advantage throughout the playoffs. Kansas City was able to achieve that, but, it's no slight to Tampa Bay. They weren't able to achieve it, but it's even tougher, like you said, to go on the road at New Orleans and then have to turn around and go right back to Green Bay and to win both places on the road. I mean, that's a huge accomplishment, but it shows that, they were prepared and they were ready to play the game, and they went out and executed and did, even though it was tougher, they did it. So that's why they got rewarded with being in the Super Bowl against Kansas City. So it should be a great game.
And Richmond, looking at both sides now that are in the Super Bowl, particularly looking at Kansas City Chiefs, they got that monkey off their back last year, that long wait. Maybe it was labelled that Andy Reid, that he had done everything apart from the Holy Grail. Patrick Mahomes, a young quarterback, could he deliver on the biggest stage of it all? We know they both did that in their plump last year. So in one way, is that expectation, is that pressure off the Kansas City Chiefs this time around, having that a bit of experience going through it last year and triumphing?
I think they know probably more what to expect than Tampa Bay. I think since they just recently went through it last year. So I think the thing that could be overwhelming sometimes if it's your first time there, the media coverage, the interviews, all the access you have to provide for the media, different fans and stuff come in. So Kansas City experienced that last year, but Tom Brady, Gronkowski, a couple of guys on Tampa Bay can count to try to prepare those guys for what to expect. But they've been through it before. But you still got to be ready to play. And I think it's a little different than a normal, regular NFL game because with all the advertisement and stuff like that, sometimes it's a little bit more delay as far as the time you go out, warm up, prepare, go back in the locker room, and then actually get announced and come out on the field. So I think it'll be a little different for Tampa Bay guys, but you know, the way you look at it is, you know, it's you work so hard to get here that you want to actually go out and do the best possible job and go out and try to execute the best possible, because you just never know when you're going to get back to the Super Bowl. So I think both teams will be prepared.
And I suppose, Richmond, we look at age is no matter these days in terms of brains and intelligence. And we look at Tom Brady, 43 years old. People said when he went to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, it was a swan song to sort of finish out his sort of career, to give him that different experience sort of such. But Brady bringing the Buccaneers to the Super Bowl, if he was to be victorious this weekend, would that single lone accomplishment, would that overshadow in terms of his greatness, everything he achieved in the Patriots under Belichick? Would this be an even bigger accomplishment?
I think he'll make history, because this is the first time a team that actually plays in the city that hosts the Super Bowl. But, you know, Tom Brady has been consistent for years. And, you know, early on, you know, as he continued to develop it, the way he prepares and stuff like that for the games, and it rubs off on guys, and guys respect him. And he's just a very disciplined player. He's going to work harder than anybody else on the team. And that type of attitude rubs off on guys. So you know what you expect. It's not any surprise. When you're going to play against Tom Brady, you got to put your best foot forward, because he's looking for anything and anything he's picking up. He's not only doing the physical part of it, but the mental part. And if he finds out something, he's definitely going to take advantage of it.
Yeah, and just looking at both head coaches, Andy Reid, I suppose we know about his legacy as such. But in terms of Bruce Arians on the other side, another veteran, experienced sort of coach. And it's the one thing missing from his resume as well. And knowing Bruce Arians, do you think there's going to be a real sort of a hunger driving through that man to achieve and fulfill that mission this weekend?
I think through both coaches, Bruce Arians is one of the top coaches in the NFL. And, you know, like you said, a lot of people probably looked at Tom Brady as being over the hill, too old, this and that. But it just shows if you bring in, you know, he brought in a quarterback. They've got guys at the skill position, Mike Evans. They've got, you know, Brown at the receiver. They got playmakers. They got a great defense. But sometimes if you can just get that one position that you're missing, it really elevates you and puts you in a position to actually get through the playoffs and get to the Super Bowl. And that was the addition of guys like Tom Brady and Gronkowski and stuff like that. And that solidified a good team and made them a great team.
I suppose at Richmond, if we look at maybe the wide receivers in this game, both teams really blessed with some top talent wide receivers. We have the likes of Tyreek Hill, for example, Nicole Hardeman as well for the Kansas City Chiefs. Two real top wide receivers, and then flip it in on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers side as well, Charles Goodwin, and obviously if Antonio Brown does the X factor, whether he will or not make an appearance, those guys can really light up a Super Bowl on their own, aside from the likes of Brady or Mahomes.
Oh, no question. And those are the type of guys, you know, like Tyreek Hill, the guys you mentioned, Brown, you know, you get the ball in their hands. If you miss a tackle, it could be, you know, a touchdown. So they have that type of big play ability that, you know, they can swing the momentum of a game, this and that. So as a defense or a defense coordinator, you got to know where those guys are at all times and try to come up with a scheme to try to defend against them. But when you got more than one weapon that you can go to, it makes it a lot tougher. So that's why I'm looking forward to see how the defensive coordinators try to match up against these great offenses.
Yeah, and I suppose we saw a peculiar thing in one sense in the conference finals. Tom Brady throwing 3 interceptions, getting picked off 3 times. Normally when that happens in a conference finals, the other team goes down the other end and they punish the opposition. But 3 times when Brady got picked off, Green Bay with probably another all-time great quarterback in Rodgers failed to sort of convert. So in terms of that, does that really show the real strength of this Buccaneers defense, that they are capable of shutting out someone of Rodgers' quality, that they could do to this something similar to Mahomes?
No question. Like you say, Aaron Rodgers, he's one of the top 2 or 3 quarterbacks in the NFL. And if you can slow him down and prevent him from taking advantage of turnovers like they did, that shows the type of skill set and the type of players they have on defense, especially when you're on the road to go and stop Aaron Rodgers like they did, to still give their team an opportunity to go up there and pull out a win. So I believe Todd Bowles is a defensive coordinator or whatever, and they did a tremendous job as far as slowing down that Green Bay offense.
Yeah, and I suppose last year, we look at Mahomes now last year in terms of the Super Bowl, they had to come from behind at halftime. And really, Mahomes, the first half, things weren't really progressing for him, but he came out in the third quarter and he just took off, really. He just took out the game by the scruff of the neck and completely took over the whole control of that Super Bowl final. So in terms of that, when the bigger the challenge, the bigger the obstacle it seems to be put in front of Patrick Mahomes, he seems to like it. He seems to rise to the challenge. It seems to get him going. He seems to revel in it as sort of such.
Oh, no question. And then what you got to look at is not only Patrick Mahomes, but Andy Reid, Eric Bieniemy, the offensive coordinator. You go in and you make adjustments, because when you have a guy with the skill set of a Patrick Mahomes, you give him the plays and being able to get the ball into like Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill, this and that. When you can get the ball to those type of guys, they're gonna make those plays. So, like you said, they started off slow last year, got behind, but Andy Reid and his staff went in, made adjustments at halftime, and got that thing opened up. And once they got going, they took over. So that's why this game is so exciting, is that I believe both teams are evenly matched, and they both have the big playability. They both have great quarterback play. They both have great players at the skill position, at the wide receiver position. So that's why I'm looking forward to it, because I think it's going to be a great one.
And just in terms of, we know the hectic schedule in terms of the playoffs this year, but having that sort of 2-week break now to sort of freshen up the bodies, and obviously Tampa having that extra game as well, obviously they probably needed that break more than the Kansas City Chiefs, given the sort of battles that they had. Do you think Tampa will be rejuvenized now, that bit of tiredness, that bit of fatigue, that obviously after the conference final and the Green Bay, will that be all gone out of the system now, given that 2-week break?
Well, you get 2 weeks. You get 2 weeks to prepare. I think the main thing is, I don't think it's going to be an issue for anyone being hyped or ready to play this game. But like you said, I think the 2 weeks if you got some nicks and bruises, it gives you an extra week to give guys to kind of heal up, to start feeling better. And guys that may not been able to play in a week, an extra week definitely does them justice, to where you probably get more guys ready to play. So that's huge when you got 2 weeks to prepare for a game like this.
And I suppose Richmond, in terms of looking at the game as such, do you think maybe the third down, fourth down, big sort of plays maybe on that, maybe stopping someone converting on third down in terms of forcing a team to punt on their own sort of play? Do you think sort of small little details like that are going to have a big bearing on the game?
If it's tight, if it's a defensive game, yeah. It could be a game of where, the defenses both really step up. And if you can't score, then it's a deal of trying to play field position, where, we didn't get what we want, but let's punt it. And hopefully we hold them. We got them backed up. Then we'll be in better position to go down, get a couple of first downs and score and get on the board. So it's all in how, it could be an offensive game, it could be a defensive game, kind of could be back and forth. But I think those are the decisions that coaches are going to have to make, that, hey, maybe sometime you might have to say, okay, normally we punt on fourth down, but hey, we're going to go for it. And you got to believe that you're going to get it. If you do get it, it could be a huge momentum swing. So it's definitely going to be not only the players, but how you coach and the game managing part of the game is going to be huge in this game if it's a tight game like that.
And I spoke Richmond to Ronnie in terms of his perspective, and he put out an interesting topic on what he thought might happen in the game. He feels maybe in the first 2 quarters that maybe Tampa will run the ball a good lot in terms of trying to keep Mahomes off the field, in terms of feeding their way into the game, feeding their way into the first 2 quarters. That Tampa will try and play field position, and sort of Brady will probably pass it off more in terms of his running backs and sort of such, and maybe once they get into position, then maybe 30, 40 yards out, then that he might look to throw it. But do you think it's something similar that Tampa will try it for maybe the first 2 quarters, if they have in possession, to try and work that field position to keep Mahomes out of the game as much as possible?
Well, it would be smart if they can get the running game going. The thing about that is, like you say, it keeps Mahomes off the field. That's something you want to do. But I think everybody knows what Patrick Mahomes can do once he gets the football. You know, they go down and score within a couple of minutes like it's nothing. It's because he's surrounded by great playmakers and he makes great plays. So when you're facing a guy like that, that's smart to try to get the running game going, because now you take time off the clock and you give him less opportunities to try to go out and convert and score points against you. So that would be a great game plan. You just got to be able to get the running game going.
And I suppose most people talk about this Kansas City Chiefs attack and this much vaulted sort of attack at the Kansas City Chiefs. But people are probably not really looking at their defensive side of the game of the Kansas City Chiefs in terms of their defense hasn't really been tested. But how good is this Kansas City Chiefs defense? Is it just as good as their attacking game?
Well, I didn't think it was, but, you know, I watched them against Buffalo, and Chris Jones, the defensive end or defensive tackle, was really disruptive and caused Buffalo a lot of issues as far as forcing them to throw the football when they wasn't prepared, this and that. And then I thought Kansas City secondary did an outstanding job against Buffalo wide receiver group. I mean, really shut them down, nullified them to where quarterback didn't really have anywhere to go with the football. So they really stepped up this last game. I thought that they would, you know, be a little slacking, but they really stepped up this last game. I was highly impressed with Kansas City's defense against Buffalo Bills. So they have the capability to do that again. They just got to, you know, if they're prepared and be ready to go. That's why I say it could be a really good football game.
And I suppose Richmond, it's fair to say normally the 2 best teams sort of find their way to the big decider in American football. You have to really earn it, and if you get there, it's probably you're there on merit or sort of such. And do you think maybe starting out of the year, maybe starting onto the playoffs, most people tipped the Kansas City Chiefs to get back into the Super Bowl. Did you obviously think they would be up against the Buccaneers, or is it a surprise to you?
Yeah, you know, early on, you know, some teams will possibly be favorites and this and that. Like, it's so many factors that go into that. You know, if you keep guys healthy, you know, you don't have injuries at key positions, which both teams did a good job of. And then, you know, like you said, with Tampa Bay having to go on the road against, you know, New Orleans, beat them, and then they went and beat a great Green Bay team. You know, those were a few of the teams that were up there. And even with Kansas City, you know, they had to go beat Buffalo. Buffalo was probably the hottest team in the NFL at that time, but they went in and, you know, they beat them. So it's normally a nucleus of, you know, 6 or 8 teams that you really pay attention to, but some of the factors that can determine the outcome of that is if they don't play up to their expectations, or if they have injuries at key positions. And both of them were fortunate not to have a bunch of injuries and keep those guys, and they got their playmakers, so that makes a huge difference.
And I suppose, Richmond, it comes to that sort of decisive moment now. You're providing our expert neutral sort of perspective. We come to that sort of prediction time. Ronnie Lott felt the brilliance of Mahomes will get Kansas City Chiefs over the line. Are you going to differ in terms of Ronnie's opinion, or are you 2 from 2? Is it 2 from 2 in terms of Kansas City Chiefs to retain the Super Bowl?
Well, I'm gonna go with Kansas City Chiefs, and mine is a little different. I played with Sam Madison and he's a defensive back coach for the Kansas City Chiefs. So I'm rooting for one of my old teammates, and Kansas City is the AFC team, and I play in the AFC. So I would like to see Kansas City pull it out, but I think it's going to be a close game, closer than what most people expect. But I'm gonna pick Kansas City to win the football game.
Kansas City. So that's 2 votes for Kansas City. Our neutral perspective, Ronnie, Lott and Richmond Webb on our Super Bowl show. We're delighted, Richmond, to have your neutral perspective, an all-time Miami Dolphins great. As we said, a 7-time consecutive Pro Bowler. Thanks for joining us today, Richmond, and we hope it's a really good game, a close encounter, and at the end of the day, we hope it's the spectacle that wins out. Richmond, a pleasure.
Pleasure's all mine. Thanks for having me on the show.
That concludes this week's special edition of the RCB Radio Sports Super Bowl preview show between the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Kansas City Chiefs. Remember, it's live this Sunday, 11:30 p.m. Irish time. This show is going out on our RCB Sport Facebook page and our YouTube channel, RCB Radio Sport, live at 92.5 and 94.8 FM. For me, Jim Conlan, I would like to thank our guests this evening to provide the Kansas City perspective, the one and only Deron Cherry and Will Shields, and also to provide a Tampa Bay Buccaneers perspective, Mike Alstott and Shelton Quarles. I would like to also thank our neutral analyst, Ronnie Lott, the true great of San Francisco 49ers, and also Richmond Webb, a true icon of the Miami Dolphins. So this for me, Jim Conlan, this is saying goodbye, God bless, and hopefully you will enjoy what will be a memorable Super Bowl final between the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Kansas City Chiefs. Good evening.